What's up, guys, and welcome back to Career Outdoors. So on this week's episode of Career Outdoors, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to tie flies. So some of you guys might know, I've spent the last few weeks working at a Boy Scout camp called Camp Steiner. It's been a lot of fun, and I was able to teach the fishing merit badge this year and the fly fishing merit badge. So I've been able to learn a lot about tying flies. I've picked up a few tricks that I kind of like to share with you guys. So me and Julie are going to teach you guys how to tie flies. But Julie, we need some fly tying stands, don't we?
We sure do, Stanley.
All right. Whoa, would you look at that? Okay, let's get started. All right. So first thing, we need to set up our stands. Alrighty, so a good woolly bugger, in my opinion, looks something kind of like this. Now, this is a store-bought one, so the ones that we're going to make are probably not going to be the same quality, but they're still going to work great. So basically, everything that's going on is it's got some stuff going on back here where it's kind of poofed up in the back, and all that in the water is actually going to get matted down, and it's going to be kind of come one straight line that looks like a leech. You kind of want it all poofy like this, just so that the tail of the leech can still move around. Also, it has some of this sparkly stuff to kind of get the fish's attention, and it has some of this frayed stuff going on, just kind of for looks, and also that's going to get matted down just so it looks more like a leech. So all in all, that's kind of what you're looking for. Now, no woolly bugger is going to be the same, and there's not a perfect way and a wrong way. It just kind of is what you personally want. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to do is, now that we've got our stands out, we're going to get our hooks, okay? We've got a fly tying kit right here, so I'm just going to bring all of this stuff out, our tray, grab some thread for Julie, some thread for me. Okay. Now we've got our thread, like I said before, we'll grab our hooks. We are using size 6 hooks. They look like these. I found that size 6 work almost perfectly for woolly buggers. You can never go, I guess you can go too big, but these size 6 hooks generally work really good just because they're that perfect ideal size. Alright, so all you basically want to do is you're going to put your hook in your stand. Now there's a certain way you want to do this. This is my favorite way, where I just pinch right kind of at the corner of where that divot is. Some people, when they're first learning, I've found that a lot of scouts will try and stick it all the way in, and you cannot tie a fly very effectively when it's in like that. So what you want to do is you want to stick it right on the corner, like I said, and then just clamp it and go like that. If you're worried about it falling out, like I said, my clamp is only going about halfway, so I can probably loosen it a bit, and that way my clamp is going to close all the way. Okay? So after I've closed it all the way, and it's hooked nice and tight, then what we're going to do is we're going to start our base thread. Alright, so what I was talking about earlier with the base thread, what I like to do is I like to give myself probably 4 or 5 inches of slack, okay? So I'm going to give myself 4 or 5 inches, and then I'm just going to rest both sides on top of my hook. I like to start near the eyelet of my hook, okay? Now I'm going to put a lot of tension using this hand, and I'm going to wrap it using this hand. Now I like to wrap to my right a little bit, but then I'm going to cross back over and wrap to my left. As you can see, when I just barely let go, this is still really loose. So I want to wrap over that piece of thread just to tighten that down, okay? Once I've wrapped over it a few times, like as you can see, all I want to do is I'm going to trim this excess off, okay? So I'm just going to trim it like that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it all the way up until the eyelet, which is only just going to take me a few seconds, okay? All right. So I've wrapped it up towards the eyelet. Our next part is going to be getting what I like to call my base feather.
Alright, so like Stanley said, we're going to start with a base feather. And this just kind of gives us a nice foundation to work off of. I like to use these really long feathers. They're kind of shiny because they don't take up too much space, but they also give you something to work with. So I have it here. But I want to trim it down because this is really long, and if you have something this long on your hook, the fish is going to bite this part instead of your hook, and you will get a lot of nibbles, but nothing for dinner. So you don't want it any longer than an inch off the back of your hook. I like to use this little lip thing on the fly tying stand as a good guide. So I just measure it, and then I chop off what I'm going to need. And then I'm going to wrap it on. So now that we have our base on, we want to add some more body to our leash so that it doesn't just look like a feather floating in the water. So we like to use this fluffy yarn. It kind of just bulks up the fly a little bit and gives it a bit more volume. So we measure out along the hook here. And we just want it to go over the back of the hook. We don't want it to hang over the end. So I just cut off a little bit. That looks about right. And then I wrap it on.
Alright guys, so I'm just going to take the fly off really quick and kind of show you what exactly is going on. So basically all we've done is we've added our base feather, okay, and we've added our body. Though they're not the exact same color right now, that's going to be okay because we are still going to make the rest of the body black. So we've got, like I just said, base feather, body, that's about it right now. Alright, so I'm going to put that back on, and our next step is going to be to add a little bit of fluff to it, I guess you could say. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out a couple pieces of this fluff. I just rip it right there, and then I'm going to cut it just to get rid of that white. Alright, so I've got rid of that white, and now that's basically what I'm working with. So it might seem like a ton, but basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it right on here, and then wrap it right down there. And the nice thing about fly tying is you can do a lot of things, and they might not look very good during the process, but afterwards you pretty much are just going to trim it all up, and it's going to make it look really nice. Alright, so once I've got that wrapped down pretty well, in fact I'm even going to trim up some of this right now, is I'm going to just grab this little excess, and cut it off right there. Like I said, no fly really has to be perfect, but just do it to whatever standards you kind of you've created. Alright, so let me take this off just to get a good look at it. So I've got kind of some feathers going down, and I've got some going up. So all I'm actually going to do is I'm actually just going to take these feathers that are going down, and I'm just going to cut them right off. Okay? Like I said, that's kind of the nice part about fly tying is you can be really loosey-goosey with it and still have a great fly. Okay, I'm going to grab my scissors and cut off the excess down here. So, at this point, our fly is looking really good and is definitely good enough to go fishing with. But the next part I want to do is we've got some of these feathers. These are kind of just like shiny, get their attention a little bit feathers. So all I'm going to do is I like to wrap it once around it like that, and then I'm going to wrap it on with my thread. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it on like that. And like I said, a lot of this stuff we're just going to have to trim off, which is completely fine. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this down. It helps if you put some tension on it, and then wrap it down. Okay, so we've got some shine in there, and if you don't think you have enough, something that I like to do is I'll just grab it and then fold it back over and then wrap it again. Okay, so I think that I could definitely use a little bit more, so all I'm going to do is wrap it again like this. Okay, now I want to trim up this a little bit and then compare my fly to the store-bought one. So I'm going to trim up some of this, trim up some of that. Okay, so right now we are nearly done, and there's my fly, and there's the store-bought one. So they both kind of got the same aspects, although I will admit the store-bought one looks like 1,000 times better. But this fly is 100% adequate and will do the exact same job as this one. Okay, this one we just used kind of a lot less materials. I'm sure it took half the time to tie, half the time to tie this fly than it did to tie this one. So yeah, all right. So I'm going to put this back on for our finishing step.
arguably the most important part of fly tying is tying off the fly. Otherwise, it's all going to unravel and you'll just be very sad. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie some, basically they're overhand knots around the fly. And how you do this is you give yourself plenty of line, like a lot of it, a whole bunch. And when you feel like you have enough, then I wrap up and over around my fingers and under, and we've made a loop here, if you can see. So then I put my thread through the loop and I pull it tight. And I do that about 4 or 5 times at least, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. Is that right? Alright, and then when you have that on there, then you just clip off the thread. If there's anything else you want to trim up, that was the time. I'm just going to trim it down just a little bit so it's not quite as long. Alright. And that is one well-made tie, if I say so myself.
Alright guys, so there you have it. We gave you a pretty in-depth explanation of how to tie these flies. And like I said, we're by no means professionals, but they're just simple woolly buggers that you can tie at home pretty easily. Yeah. And make sure you guys come and watch our other videos on when we actually go out and use these flies in action to catch some fish. So, thank you guys so much for watching this week's episode of Kerr Outdoors, and make sure you guys stay tuned for next week's. Thanks for watching.